Hello everyone, it's Dr. Bob Rowe again, and this presentation is going to be on using acupuncture points. How to use them to help you with your physical problems and ensure that your body works at an optimal level. Why is that? Well, out of all the healing systems, this one's probably been around the longest, if not one of the longest, and it's been proven for thousands of years. So what we want to do with this one is we want to start to break it down into its most simple components. Just like the universe, you can understand it when you break it down to the most simple components and use it the way it's most used today in healing. So with this, it's important to know that it's not difficult. It's very, very simple. There's very simple procedures you can use and become very, very confident and competent in what you're doing here. So let's just talk a little bit about how to find acupuncture points. So first of all, we will use meridians sparingly. We won't go into all of the different parts, the meridians that are connected to all the organs and all of that stuff. We'll talk about in science how we can influence organs and that kind of thing using acupuncture points, but we won't be using the meridian approach. So it's not going to be the meridian approach. It's going to be more of the acupuncture point approach in working on particular areas of problem. So what is an acupuncture point? So an acupuncture point is connected directly into the nervous system. Why is that important? It's because now you can send messages directly up to the brain and get the brain to pay attention to the area of problem. Because ultimately, the brain has to send information down to that area to do the healing. And so when you're doing this, remember that you're asking the brain to pay attention to what you're working on. Now, we know scientifically that an acupuncture point has very high conductance, in other words, lower resistance in the skin. And we developed an accurate acupuncture point finder by using this principle, and it still works today, 30 some years later, and it's really unique. But you don't need that. What you need is just your hands, and when we do the practical part of this, you'll see how to do it. So what this is about is just understanding what lies behind this and what procedures you're going to take to utilize it most efficiently and effectively for what you want to use it for you and your family or friends or dogs, cats, animals, whatever. So the interesting thing about acupuncture points is they can influence not only the direct area that you're working on, but areas remotely connected to that, even inside the body. So, and I won't go through all of the reasons and all of the points there are to do with acupuncture points. But just these to understand that it does have a role in healing by connecting the nervous system to the area of problem and getting the brain to pay attention to it. And that's basically what you have to know from this. Now, in finding acupuncture points, if you don't have a point finder, you have to know that they are tender to the touch. And when we go through the workshop part of it, you'll get to see how we go about finding them. Now, they are mostly found in depressions. That means that the area of the body that there is a groove or your finger sinks into very easily is generally where the acupuncture points are. And they lie directly over and are connected into major nerve trunks, major nerves, blood vessels, lymphatic materials, all of those key things that keep us functioning. And they have a very important part in stimulating the immune system to help you out with fighting different infections and problems too. Now, when there is an acupuncture area or an area that is in trouble, there will be more acupuncture points. Not only that, but they'll be much more tender to the touch. As a matter of fact, if you look at a traditional acupuncture point diagram, what you'll find in an area of problem where there is pain and there's tenderness, restriction, motion, those kinds of things, there will be more acupuncture points for you to find. So you need to get good at finding them in the indentations. When you press on it, it should be tender there. Now, when you get really good at it, what you can do is you'll feel that along the skin, you'll find a spot that is a little bit more sticky than the other points. And that will be that will be another indication that you're on the acupuncture point. So those things, on an indentation, tender to the touch, a little bit of stickiness there when you go over it. Just your finger seems to not want to glide as easily over that area. And they're that easy to find. So don't get too carried away with finding them. They're really, really simple to find. So don't push too hard and don't dig too hard. Just kind of get the feel of it, go over it lightly, and then find the indentations, feel where your finger gets a little bit sticky right there, and there, oh, there it is right there. I found it right there. Okay, that's not a problem with this one. It's not tender at all, so that should be fine. So those are the important things you need to know. Now, so with this, although it does have remote influences, we're primarily talking about neuromusculoskeletal problems. In other words, restriction in joint motion, the muscles being too tight, the muscles being swollen or tender or restricted, that kind of thing. So those are the kinds of things we're going to look for. Now, again, after saying that, when you're working on that particular area, you're also working on all of the areas below that. All the areas that are the skin above a particular area has a nerve supply. And that nerve supply comes from that particular area of the spine and the brain. But it doesn't just supply the skin. It supplies everything underneath it. It's called Hilton's Law. So when you are affecting a particular area, you're not just affecting the muscle, you're affecting the arteries and the nerves and the veins and the lymphatic tissues and all of those things, the immune system, all those things around that acupuncture point. That's how vital that is. So just think about that for a second. And one of the other things that we've noticed in acupuncture is that the important points are found between the shoulder and the fingertips and the hip and the toes. Now, there's all kinds of different terms for these: source points, master points, tonification points, sedation points, but we're not interested in that right now. We're going to do a technique called Surround the Dragon. So let's just look at some information more on what we'll be looking for. So here's some pictures of some muscles, and you can see that there's grooves in those muscles where those muscles are. And you'll find when you go in those grooves that that's where the acupuncture points will be. So if somebody has an uncomfortable area in one part of their muscle on the forearm, and the muscle's really tight, then when you palpate, and you put your finger on that area and you're pushing along, you don't go on the area of the muscle that's really tight and sticks up. You go beside that and you'll find a groove and an indentation, and that's where the really tender spot's going to be. So you don't have to mash that big tight muscle, flatten it out. You just have to stimulate the nerve or the acupuncture point to get the nerve to pay attention. So the brain is recognizing that here is the problem area. So that's basically all you have to know. And then you search around in that area after you found it, and you palpate and you keep treating all those points around the area until the muscle starts to let go. And we'll demonstrate that later on. So, and that's basically the start of this whole thing, and that's all you have to know in order to get the best, really good results on the majority of problems, because this is the way the majority of acupuncture is practiced around the world, and this is the part that gets the most results. It's like the 80-20 rule. This is the 20% of acupuncture that gets 80% of the results, and that's basically how it works. So pay attention. We're on to the next one.